Well, welcome in, and in the waning hours after just a totally embarrassing, disappointing Celtics loss to the Pelicans in overtime, no less. We are ready for a new edition of Celtics Beat. Welcome in. I'm Adam Kaufman. Great to be back with you. Evan Valenti, you are certainly familiar with him, and thanks to him for running the ship last week. And of course, Tom Westerholm, recently of Boston.com, first time on this show since that move from Mass Live. What's up, man? Welcome.
Thank you. How you guys doing?
Well, we've been better.
Been better. I'm just today, definitely been better.
Yeah, and Ev has had a whole day, like independent of sports. It's a home ownership grind, and all of us out there and in just Celtics fandom or covering the team, or just people who like good basketball, we are suffering. Generally, Tom, and I think you know this enough about me. Certainly, the listeners do. I tend to be a positive person. I err on the side of optimism, and like that. I'm not. I'm like the dog meme. I'm the this is fine dog surrounded by fire. And today it's really hard to be that. It really, I start thinking, I'm watching that game earlier and I start thinking about what are we going to talk about on the show later? Maybe Danny's comments during the week. I know the last game, be it a win, it against Atlanta was, tighter down the stretch than it should have been. It wasn't maybe a full-on dominating victory or anything like that, but maybe Danny's comments during the week of really just, we're not good enough, the roster isn't good enough, this is not a contender. Maybe it woke him just a little bit. Maybe there's just a little bit of the kick in the arse that they did. And well, no. I think they are who we thought they were, as Dennis Green once said. And this was such an infuriating loss to the Pelicans for so many reasons that obviously we have time to get to. And we don't typically like to make a show isolated to one specific game. People may listen to it, 4 days from now when it's less relevant, but we have to begin here. Main takeaways from just such a fresh wound that we're dealing with.
Well, I mean, I think the big one is just the fourth quarter struggles. Like they're one of the worst teams in the fourth quarter. They can't close games. Every single time they have a lead going into the fourth quarter, it feels tenuous because you just know that there's a very good, every indicator that we have so far this season is that they're going to either blow it or that they're going to come close to blowing it. Obviously they actually finished off blowing it today, which, I think probably made it a little bit worse for everybody. But yeah, I mean, look, like, I think Danny's comments, they may have been pointed. They may have been trying to, maybe try to light a fire under some guys. They might be a little bit exaggerated because, again, this team isn't fully healthy. We haven't seen them with Marcus Smart, and that will make a difference. But I mean, I don't think it makes like all the difference that they need it to make at this stage. I think there's a lot going wrong with this team that goes beyond Marcus Smart at this point. So. Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up nicely. I think that the big takeaways from this game are that they continue to struggle in the fourth quarter, and again, they are kind of who they have seemed to be. Like I don't think they're running some big trick on us. I think that right now this is just a kind of a genuinely mediocre basketball team.
I'm not faulting Danny for it, but in multiple interviews and radio, print, whatever, he did lean on and this was true at the time, our desired starting five for the season has only been together for 20 minutes. 20 minutes, that's it. We're 30 games into the season at this point, 15-15 with this loss today. So there's validity in that. And obviously what you're talking about with Marcus Smart not being out there, I mean, that's your top guy off the bench and sometimes he starts. So again, you can argue that and that's fine, but I just feel like we're kind of, this is the pattern, right? And maybe it's a string of bad luck in recent years, but this is the pattern. You look back at last year, the year before that, it always just kind of circles back to injuries. And it very rarely is the first thing, we're not playing well enough. And Danny gets there. He gets there and he's pressed on it. And he doesn't run away from it, but it does again come back to health. And I just think that even if this team, Kemba Walker, is available from the start and he's not on a minutes restriction and Marcus Smart's not dealing with an injury and Jason Tatum, who, and obviously with the COVID absence and not only that, the breathing being out of whack as he described it since then, and Jalen doesn't miss a couple of games like that. None of that covers up for the fact that Tristan Thompson's been inconsistent, that Rob Williams is not playing enough, that Aaron Nesmith, was slow to get it going and now he's out there and he's a rookie. You only expect so much, but now he's starting to play well. Peyton Pritchard has been been nothing like he was pre-injury since he's come back. Jeff Teague, who I was so high on that addition, has been trash, and Brad knows it, which is why he's not playing him at all. I mean, he's just getting DNPs. This team, even healthy, is not a contender. It's just not. We would have liked to have, been able to tell that story coming off of Eastern Conference Finals 3 out of the last 4 years and general success, even if some want to call it underachievement, losing to Miami, general success in the bubble last year in Orlando, or months ago in Orlando. But where we are at right now, you can lean on injuries or things along those lines all you want. That doesn't totally cover up for all the defensive lapses that you talked about, inability to finish, lack of urgency. Evan, what was Jason Tatum's comment post game? We got to grow up.
Jaylen Brown. It's just like
Jaylen Brown. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want it enough. Basically, it was just, we gotta mature more, and we gotta grow up a little bit, because, I mean, look, good teams don't blow fourth quarter leads, or almost blow fourth quarter leads to the Atlanta Hawks, who can't guard anybody, and to the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, this team was up almost 30 points on the Pelicans. And at one point during the game, I didn't tweet it out. Luckily I didn't. I was like, man, the Pelicans are terrible. They're awful. And I get like some people want to do like the 1 o'clock start time. That's weird. Or the 3:30 start time on a Sunday. That's weird. Like I understand that in certain, but like, no, and they started slow, but they kicked it into gear. They looked great. Jalen didn't have the best night shooting, but they had an almost 30-point lead, and they blew it, and they almost didn't. Luckily, Tatum had a couple of tough shots in regulation to keep them alive, but just couldn't hang with Zion and Melly and Brandon Ingram. I mean, like, come on here. Like, this is bad. And we talked off air about what this team's going through, and I'm sure we'll go through it, a little bit more as we get through the show. But you touched on it. Tom's inconsistent. You're paying Aaron Neesmith 27 minutes. And they were good 27 minutes, the best 27 minutes probably of his career so far. But if you're relying on that, it's just not going to go well. They're inconsistent, and it all comes back to the top 3 guys. Tatum's been playing well, no question. Brown had 9 assists tonight, so he 25 and 9, unbelievable. Kemba 1 for 12 from 3-point range. I mean, you're not going to win games when your third best scorer is 1 for 12 from beyond the arc. So they got to find a way to get Kemba, most importantly, on track. Because if they don't, I mean, they need a trade anyway. But if they don't, and they don't get anybody in a trade, any big guy in a trade, this team is sunk in 2020, 2021. And you might as well start thinking about 21, 22, because there's just no way this team gets the NBA Finals. No way.
Well, and to your point, about, like Kemba struggled, like, I think, the pieces were kind of in place for the Celtics to fall apart a little bit down the stretch, because like you said, Jalen wasn't having the best shooting night. Kemba wasn't having the best shooting night. And realistically, that's been like the formula for a lot of the times when the Celtics have struggled this year, is when only one of their guys is really going, like, and that was, kind of the case this time. They were getting offense, in other areas as well. And obviously Rob was really playing well, but I mean, that's part of the problem with this team, right? Is that like their 3 guys can't really put it together. And some of that is, the fact that like Tatum and Jalen don't all, they haven't always played well on the same night. Part of that is certainly that Kemba Walker has had, 4 good games, and there was some positive momentum for him, he was starting to get things together a little bit, and maybe this is just kind of a one-off. Maybe he does start to kind of get things together a little bit, but the whole Celtics season kind of rests on that, because it's going to be hard to improve this team the amount that they need to improve at the trade deadline. I think, fans look at the TPE, fans look at the, the big one, they look at, Enes Kanter and traded player exception, all that stuff. And there's improvements that can be made, but, a lot needs to be fixed. And, unless you can fix all of it, I don't think this is a championship team unless Kemba Walker is a star. And that's been what this whole season is riding on, from the jump. And I think the answer so far is that he isn't. I hope for his sake that he, can kind of do it, because I'm sure this is really frustrating for him, to just kind of be, to be kind of on and off again all the time. But I mean, that feels like the long and the short of it, right? Is that this team is a championship contender if Kemba Walker is great, and he hasn't been great so far.
Kemba, his just recent game log, and he's, like you said, he's been playing better of late prior to this game today. He really had been, 20 plus points a game, but more notable than that was shooting the ball well. And you look specifically at three. Now, he obviously had that, really, he was kind of miserable to come out of the injury, the all that he played in January, which wasn't much. The half dozen games he didn't shoot the ball well. To start February, didn't shoot the ball well. Recently, last game, 5 out of 8, 3 for 8 before that, 4 for 7 before that, 5 out of 8 before that. And so, I mean, good percentages, well over 40% for the month, all told. And then obviously he has the 1 for 12 today. And you can look at it and say, as you alluded to, maybe it's a one-off, maybe it's not a big deal. I know that players will always tell you, you got to try and shoot your way out of it. Coaches, Brad Stevens, a guy, philosophically who views the game as he does, will certainly say you got to shoot your way out of it. Shooters got to shoot, all of that. But, at a certain point in time where you're 1 for 12 from 3 in a close game, do you need to back off? Do you need to lean more on your true stars, the guys that are guiding you night after night? Or should he just be continuing to fire away, hope it falls, because you'd rather he take a 3 than a Daniel Tice, a Shemi Ojeleye, guys like that?
I think that the Celtics are right to let him keep shooting for 2 reasons. Number one, like as much as sure, like you could say like, Jalen and Jason should have the bulk of it, but at the same time, they already do. Like those guys are being really, really worked right now. They're just being asked to do a whole lot. And, they're being asked to do a whole lot. I mean, Jalen's dealing with knee tendonitis. They're playing like every other night, if not every night. Like, I know fans don't want to hear it, but like, and I know it's like it's true league wide, but like these guys are all exhausted. Like this is a really, really taxing, difficult season. And, I'm not saying that's like the reason for the Celtics struggles. I'm just saying like, that's why you can't, like, I don't think you can just go to Jalen and Jason and be like, I think we need a little more from you guys. And then I think the other thing too, is just, again, like I think Kemba should keep shooting, because if he isn't a star, then this team isn't a championship team. And if that's the goal this year is to be a championship team, like, I think somehow Kemba has to figure it out. And again, Celtics fans might not like that, because right now it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But I think that really is kind of how it shakes down, is even with a big, addition at the trade deadline or whatever it might be, this team contending depends on Kemba being, a 20 point per game guy or something close to that. Certainly somebody who's capable of that, night in and night out. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's where I would come down on it. And it's tough because the injury, you don't want to make like the injury excuse, because like you said, it happens every single year. But, like for better or worse, Kemba's knee is, could decide this entire season. So, I keep harping on it, but like it's pretty important that your third best player is a good player.
To piggyback off that though, just because, Kemba's shooting 12 threes. A lot of people are like, well, maybe he should stop shooting. And the problem is, who the hell is going to play point guard instead of Kemba Walker? I mean, we all love Pritchard, right? But Pritchard has been going through it as of late. He's going to have some struggles as a rookie. He's been great so far, but you're really counting on him to kind of run their offense in the fourth. Because again, Tom's running the money. Jalen and Jason are doing enough. This should be enough. These two guys are carrying a huge burden here. Somebody has to give them a break. It's not going to be Daniel Tice. It's not going to be Rob Williams. It's not going to be Tristan Thompson, Aaron. It's not going to be any of those guys. It has to be Kemba. It can't be anybody else. Maybe in other times it's Marcus Smart can come off and give him, because Marcus is always willing to get those shots up anyway. So maybe it's smart, but like right now, the way this team currently is, it can only be Kemba. And that's sort of the problem where this team is right now, because they have so many guys that have limited skill sets. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because you need those guys. Like you need everybody like, oh, we should get PJ Tucker. It's like, well, Shemi Ojeleye gives you some of that. I'm not trying to say he gives you all that, but he gives you some of that. Rob Williams, and I'm sure we'll get him later, playing out of his mind lately. He can only do so much. Aaron Neesmith can only do so much. You need somebody to help Jalen and Jason with the scoring load. And it's not going to be anybody else on the roster. It has to be Kemba Walker, or if they make a trade, maybe it's that guy. But with the way the roster is right now, as of, what is it, the 20th, 21st today, whatever the hell the day it is today, it's March a millionth for what I care. It has to be Kemba. It can't be anybody else. And that's the struggles that Boston has right now. It's the roster crunch they're in right now. And don't get me wrong, injuries has something to do with that. But at the end of the day, too, this roster lacks something, and it's becoming more evident game after game after game. Chris Gasper, of course, had a great quote a great tweet at the end of the game. Celtics are 29th in bench scoring. That's a problem.
Yeah, no question. And it really hammers home. Like I was talking about this on my podcast a couple of days ago, like the 2018
what podcast is that, Tom? Why don't you plug that?
it?
Oh, the Genotime podcast over on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Anybody can like, subscribe, 5-star review.
Yep.
No, but I mean, it was, look, the 2018-19 season, it went so poorly. And the weirdest thing about that team was how much talent there actually was. And that's why this team is so different, is because there's actually like the two stars are actually playing great. It's just that there's, like this team would kill. We were talking about it before we started recording. This team would kill for Terry Rozier right now. And Terry Rozier was getting, like 12 minutes a game or whatever he was in 2018-19. Like, it's crazy how much talent has come and gone. And the talent that's on the team has really developed. They've gotten really good. And I don't think it's impossible that could happen again next year. I think that the Celtics do a pretty good job of, we haven't seen Romeo this year, but I think, they do a pretty good job of developing some of these guys. I think, next year, Aaron Nesmith and Romeo Langford might be reliable bench players, or, maybe even one of them can slide into the starting role. Like if everything goes well and if they really improve over the summer, like those things are not impossible. But as of right now, the talent gap between, the Celtics teams of the last 2 years and the team this year is just really catastrophic. And I think I think that bench, scoring stat is, it sums it up really well. Like they just, outside of the really talented guys, there's not a lot of talent kind of underneath them.
I was waiting for the "Wherefore art thou, Romeo" joke, and you blew it.
Yeah, that's not me. This is why the Genotime podcast is kind of,
So staying with Kemba though, fine. Like if we want to agree that obviously he's got to be your third best player, he's got to be a star, he's got to have usage, all of that. No qualms there. Should we be attacking the way in which he is playing his game? And some of it is adjusting to the minutes restrictions, and some of it is obviously just shot selection, that type of thing. You can't ignore though. We were talking a little bit before we came on, Evan and I, about Tatum, Brown especially, still kind of, whining about non-calls when they go to the rim. Now, that obviously wasn't the case against the Pelicans. Between the two of them, they went to the free throw line almost 25 times. They had their opportunities. Even if they aren't getting nearly the calls that they should be, those star calls over the course of the season, today, that was not a problem. Kemba, though, it's not about not getting the call. It's about not even trying to get the call. He right now is averaging, at least coming into today, and it's going to be consistent because he went to the line 3 times. He is averaging 3.1 free throws per game, 3.1. Now, his career average is 4.7 during his, earlier time with Charlotte, when he was really, the Kemba we all know and love, was consistently 5.5. How much do you think the knee is playing into him not even attempting to go to the line, to draw contact, to be that guy that he was before this issue came along? And how problematic is that?
Well, I mean, it's they're 15-15, right? Or is that right? Or something like that. They're it's hugely problematic for sure. Look, I mean, he insists that it's not his knee, that he feels fine, and that might be the case. Like I don't know what his knee is doing, but if it's not his knee, then
maybe
like
it's psychological.
Then that's almost more concerning, right? Yeah. Is like if your knee's feeling great and this is how you're playing, like that, like maybe it's just another stage of his career, and and again, maybe not. Like I don't know. At this stage, it's difficult to say what it is with him, because there was that 4-game stretch where he was playing a lot better and he looked pretty good, and even today, he snuck a couple of those. A couple of those layups where it looks like he should get blocked and then he doesn't. He just kind of sneaks it up there. He had a couple of those, and I think those are kind of a reliable indicator of maybe he is feeling a little bit better. So because he wasn't doing those early in the season. So I mean, realistically, like I could see it either way. I could certainly see the 4-game sample size being just noise. I could also see his 1 for 12 shooting night being just noise. Like I don't think he's a 1 for 12 3-point shooter. If he shoots 4 for 12, then this is a completely different game. So, I don't know. I mean, that's a complete non-answer to your question, but it's certainly concerning because if like I said, if the knee is fine and this is how he's playing and this is just who he is, then that's a problem. But I'm certainly not going to tell people that it's not panic time, but I do think that there is still a chance that Kemba Walker looks a little bit more like the Kemba Walker that, everybody kind of knows. And if he isn't, then again, this team is kind of meh.
You've alluded, Tom, a number of times here in the show to the TPE, and I know Danny was asked about it, certainly didn't express any sort of urgency to use it. Not that he would. I'm not surprised by that. You pay attention to what's out there on social media or on TV, the talking heads, writers even. I mean, I've heard arguments for JJ Redick. Don't agree with any of them. I've heard arguments for Al Horford. Loved him here. Nope, no thanks. Don't need to bring him back. If you're going to attempt to use that TPE, as I would assume Danny is at least attempting to do and exploring, and we'll see who becomes available. At that point in time, you're talking about, I know Evan would love to see a Harrison Barnes here. Who wouldn't? Nick Vucevic, you could certainly make a strong case for. People have floated, John Collins, who's not a TPE guy based on his money. He doesn't have to be, but obviously assets would have to go the other way. But that is a guy you would have to pay a significant amount of money to, given he turned down $90 million from the Hawks. That guy's getting ready to cash in. I would like to see a Collins type player brought in, or even some of the other guys that I mentioned, guys who are not 30 or on the wrong side of 30, guys who are, either mid 20s to upper 20s, who are experienced, who are, if not already established, budding stars in the league. I'm thinking less about, contending this year and more about a window and putting yourself in the best position to compete long term. So all of that being said, how does this play out? Is Danny going to find a way to use this before the trade deadline? Are we looking at the offseason? Is he not going to use it at all? And who would you target?
So the first question I think is a really interesting one, because I think it will kind of tell us what Danny actually thinks of this team, right? Like if he goes out and he, tries to make like a big, splashy move, if he goes out and gets, Aaron Gordon, or if he goes out and gets Harrison Barnes or whoever it might be, I think then he actually thinks like, okay, this team, then maybe when he did say that, I don't think this team is a contender, then maybe he was just kind of trying to light a fire under them. And maybe he does kind of see this team as, a potential contender, somebody who could make a little bit of a run. If he doesn't think that this team is there, then I think you have to just hold on to the TPE, as much as it's going to make everyone really mad. If you don't think this team is a contender, I think you have to hold it for the offseason, because there will be more options available at that time. Sorry, guys.
That's fine, especially with the play-in tournament, right? Like there are so many teams that you don't even know how they're feeling about their seasons right now. And Orlando, as you mentioned, Aaron Gordon, Orlando's part of that.
Sacramento's hanging around just enough to make Harrison Barnes not available, which is going to drive me up a wall. So I'm already ready for that particular part of the season.
The other weird thing about Harrison Barnes is the last 5 games, he has fallen off a cliff. So I think there might be a little bit of regression to the mean going on with him right now. But regardless, though, I think if you don't think that this team is a championship team, you wait till the offseason, you try to get something a little bit better. Maybe you're dealing at that point from a position of strength, as opposed to right now, where teams know, if the Celtics are trading right now, they are desperately trying to turn their team into a contender. And maybe they say, look, what you offered is nice. We want an extra first round pick, or we want that pick to be completely unprotected, or whatever it might be, something that the Celtics might not be comfortable with. So, I think that's kind of how it breaks down. And you can go through the list. I mean, I think I agree that Harrison Barnes probably is if you can get the version of Harrison Barnes who's played for most of this year, I do think that answers a lot of the Celtics problems. I think it makes their rotation make more sense. I think, it adds floor spacing, it adds defensive versatility. I would also say that, whenever Danny Ainge is involved, you never actually know who the trade target is going to be when it actually happens. So we talk about Harrison Barnes, we talk about Aaron Gordon. I mean, it's probably somebody if he does make a deal, it's probably somebody we're not even thinking of.
Yeah,
but
he's out there looking for Jeremy Grant.
It's something. Yeah. Somebody, Scal might've blown his cover there with that one.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, no, I just think that's how it's going to break down. And I think it really just does kind of come down to, what does Danny think of this team? Is there any chance that they contend? Because if so, I think he probably will make a move. because I think he will look at, Jalen and Jason and think, I don't want to, waste a year of how good these guys are. But, if not, then like at very least, if you kick the can down the road, maybe Neesmith's value goes up a little bit as the season goes on. Maybe Romeo comes back and looks like a real prospect. Like maybe Peyton Pritchard gets it together a little bit after, some recent struggles, and maybe you just have a better trade package for a better player during the offseason. And if that's the case, I think you got to do it. But yeah, it just kind of shakes down to how honest he was when he said he doesn't think this team's a contender.
Do you think they're a contender, Tom?
No, I don't. I really don't. I don't think they're a contender, and I don't think that they are with a trade deadline move. Which is why I think that there is quite a bit of rationale to pushing it to the offseason. And yeah, and again, maybe you have better value then. Maybe somebody gets disgruntled during the season, somebody that you could really help you. Any number of things could happen. But I just, the way this team is struggling, and just kind of the miles that are being put on Jalen and Jason right now, I just even if they do bring in a great piece, are all these miles, are they going to be able to hold up, for the whole regular season and into the off season? I don't know. It's tough, man. So I don't see it with this team right now.
Isn't some of that too semantics, right? Like, how do you personally define a contender? Like, to me, to me, a contender is a team that I realistically think has a chance to win a championship, right? Just plain and simple. That is the, that is the purest definition of it to me. If you had asked me about that last year, even in the playoffs, the way they were going early on, even if they had beaten Miami and gone to the NBA Finals, I still would have said, I don't think they're going to beat the Lakers. I still don't think, I mean, sure, you're a contender just by virtue of the fact that you're there. I guess LeBron goes down or Davis goes down, you got a chance, of course. But, if all things being equal, everybody being healthy, I don't see how you could possibly look at this team as a contender.
Yeah. No,
you're a LeBron going down away from winning the NBA Finals, man.
Right. That's what I mean. The guy's a robot. He doesn't go down. So it's,
bad place to be. It's not where you want to be. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Even if they had beaten Miami, as so many people believe they should have, even if they had beaten Miami, and Adebayo goes down against you as opposed to the Lakers, and you're able to get there, you're still not going to beat the Lakers. I think it would have been a more competitive series. It would have been more interesting, but they still weren't going to win that championship. And so that shows the gap. That shows the hurdle that needs to be overcome. And I don't know what singular addition comes in and changes that right now.
It's tough because I think exactly to your point, they're really every single season, there are what, generously 5 teams, there's 30 NBA teams, right? Every season, generously, there's 5 that could win a championship. And, right. If you just kind of closed your eyes and you did it, and you just kind of were okay, what are the 5? You'd go LA, Brooklyn. And then you're I don't know, maybe there's a couple others. And then you could make a case for Utah. You could make a case for, some of these other teams, but you could make a case
for Philly before you make a case for Boston.
Exactly. You can make a case for you could definitely make a case for Milwaukee before you can make a case for Boston. Cause they have problems in the, in the playoffs, certainly, but they also still have Giannis. So right. There's cases that can be made all over the place, but I just don't see what it is for Boston right now. What about this team would convince you that they can, certainly that they could beat the Lakers 4 times out of 7 or the Clippers 4 times out of 7, but also, you go down the line, what makes you think that they can stop Joel Embiid enough 4 times out of 7, the way he's playing and how much they've struggled to guard him? What makes you think that they could, slow down Giannis after just seeing, they've done such a good job against Zion against Giannis in the past, but look at what it took Zion 2 quarters to figure them out. And Zion and Giannis are very similar players. So yeah, it's just logistically,
Zion is thick. That dude is a force.
They're not similar physically, certainly, but they're similar in terms of style of play. So yeah, I don't see it and the tough thing is, I obviously I said about 1 million times there that it all rests on Kemba. And it's yeah, but even if Kemba's great, how much does that improve things? How much does that change the calculus with Giannis or with Harden, Durant, and Kyrie? there's some tough teams out there, and I don't know that I think the Celtics are one of them.
At what point do you need to not pack it in? Because that's not at all what I'm advocating. This is a playoff team. This is a team that could make noise. Obviously guys get healthy, guys get right, guys get confident, shots fall. Like, they can go on a run. So I'm not dismissing any of that. They could be right back in the conference finals for sure. I think that's their ceiling as things stand right now, but they could absolutely be back there. But nevertheless, at what point do you kind of evolve in your approach at least a little bit? Like, a game like today is a good example. Does Daniel Tice need to be playing 40 minutes to Rob Williams' 20 when he looked great when he was out there? Do we need to see more of Robert Williams? Do we need to see more of, it's hard to see more of Pritchard than you are, but do we need to see more of Nesmith? And maybe we're trending in that direction because he played 27 minutes today. But do you need to start to see a little bit more of what you've got in your youth as you try and shape a contender?
I mean, I would argue yes. And it's not just because of the youth. Like, I think that one kind of outside the box thing you could do is you could just go to Tatum and Jalen and say, listen, you guys are super worn down. Like, we get it. We're going to put you on a 25-minute limit for like the rest of the season, and just say like, we don't want you guys to get hurt for next year. Like, we want to like preserve you guys as much as we can. If we're the 7th seed, screw it. Like, we're the 7th seed, and we'll go from there. It's like, because which would you rather be? A 4th seed and Jalen and Jason are averaging 36 minutes a night because you need them to do like to be everything? Or would you rather be a 7th seed and have healthy, fresh, or at least more fresh guys? And in doing that, you would, give Nesmith more minutes. You would, maybe let Grant Williams get on the floor and kind of work through some of his kinks. Maybe you get Romeo Langford back and he's able to, kind of show what he can do. I think there's a case to be made for it. Even if it is just again, like you said, not packing it in, but I think you do if part of your calculus is you don't want to upset Jalen and Jason, and you want them to be happy and you want them to feel competitive, then you're already kind of looking down the road a little bit, right? Like, you're already kind of a team that's looking toward the future. And if that's going to be the case, you do not want one of those guys, kind of putting a ton of wear and tear, or, God forbid, getting injured as a result of just being out there so much. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a million reasons why that's a bad idea, that Brad Stevens and the assistant coaches would be like, if I was ever able to talk to somebody, they'd be like, Tom, don't be an idiot. Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder if there isn't, if there isn't some kind of a happy medium there where you just say or even, if it's alternate nights, Jalen's on a 20-minute limit tonight, Tatum's on one tomorrow, or whatever it is, where you just I think that there is something to trying to preserve these guys in a really difficult season, in a super packed together season, where they just have had a lot to do. And I think it's been really hard.
The thing is, those two guys are ready for the next step. And it seems like the rest of the team's not ready with them yet. And it's a bummer. But I'm with you on the more Robert Williams. I need all of it. I need all the Rob Williams minutes. He's just been, he's going to do a couple things a game that are going to make you go, what the hell are you doing? But he's also going to provide you a lot of really excellent, material. I mean, he had a lot of stuff in the game against the Pelicans where you sit there and go, he's the only guy in this team that can do anything like that. I mean, he had a couple of alley-oops where his head is at the rim and his arm is almost over the top of the backboard. You had the block on Brandon Ingram's 3, which is a super impressive block because he's got to give up the drive, right? And again, that was ridiculous. Doris Burke did a great job highlighting that. They are in a weird spot right now, only because those two other guys are ready to go. Those guys, they might not make all NBA teams, they might not both make the All-Star team, but those two guys are ready to go to battle every night, and they're ready to take the next step into, that full contention. They've got one toe in or 1 foot in, and they're not all the way in yet because it's the rest of the guys. And I look at. We talk about injuries. You talk about bringing guys in, and nobody really knows what the true answer to this team is yet. And we're all going to be searching for answers for the next couple of weeks because you're not going to get any answer because we're not going to see Marcus Smart until after the All-Star break. We got that little nugget of news from Woj, I think, right before the game. I think they're going to hold our boy Romeo Langford out until after the All-Star break. So you're not going to see any of those two reinforcements anytime soon. There is a world where I think the chaos of Marcus Smart maybe brings this team together a little bit. He is sort of the chemistry leader of this team. He's sort of the backbone, the heart and soul. I think Jalen's did a good job in the absence, trying to kick guys in the ass a little bit. I think Tristan Thompson's done the job of the veteran of trying to get everybody together. But you look at the whole rest of the roster, and you have Jalen and Jason, and they're just they're 41 minutes, both of them against the Pelicans. They're playing 36, 37 minutes a night to get wins, to barely squeak by. To Tom's point, like that's maybe something you have to think about the rest of the year is managing these guys' minutes, and because you heard, was it Brad pregame? They said they got to monitor Rob's minutes for the rest of the year because they want to make sure he's fresh in the playoffs. Like I'd be more worried about resting the other two guys whose usage rates are got to be through the roof right now, considering the rest of the team's playing. I would be way more worried about that. I'd be way more worried about those guys being fresh because look, like, yeah, having a fresh Robert Williams when it comes to playoff time is going to be nice. But if those two guys aren't healthy, there's absolutely no way in hell you sniff the conference finals over on the NBA finals.
We might be just overlooking, and Tom brought it up before, we might not be making enough of a point about Jalen and the knee tendonitis that Danny dropped on us recently. I mean, maybe that's something that's worth monitoring and being a little bit more aware of going forward.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, like all you have to do is look at Kemba and like, the bulky knee there and just be like, look, like you don't want, I don't think you want to mess with like long-term knee problems. Cause that's scary stuff. But I mean, just to Evan's point, just to the usage rate, it's kind of crazy right now. This is from Cleaning the Glass. Jaylen Brown, 29.6% usage rate, which is 95th among wings, 95th percentile.
What was it last year? Do you have that handy?
I can get it real quick. Yeah. So last year,
just to show the difference between the two numbers.
Certainly. So Jalen last year was 23.3. So it's gone up quite a bit
lower than that.
So 29.6 for Jalen, 31.6 for Tatum. That's 99th percentile. And Kemba, 30.2. That's 71st percentile among point guards. So like those three guys have huge usage rates, and the rest of the team, the entire rest of the team is below average in usage rate, for their position. So, I mean, again, like even Kemba, who's struggling, they are putting a lot on these guys. And, and that's not a criticism of Brad, because like, I don't know what else he's supposed to do.
Can we get to that? Can we get to this whole Brad thing? Because I feel like people are
why is he
on Brad a little
bit, Tom?
People are turning on Brad a little bit, and I'm of the idea that it's more Danny's fault than Brad's fault.
Well, Danny said that. Danny's not running from that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, I think when you look at the things that people complained about with Brad, it was stuff like the two big lineup, which has played pretty well in February. And like, that was what he was trying to do. He was trying to establish that. And he said the other day, like, yeah, they struggled, but if you look at our record, we won games during that stretch. So it was, like that ended up working out okay. Or you look at, like people like to rip on his rotations, and it's like, okay, but like, the rotations that he's working with now aren't working. Like he's trying to find things that work. So yeah, I mean, look, like I don't think he's had like a perfect season, but I think that the people who are just screaming like fire Brad, fire Brad, fire Brad, like one, what do you want Brad to be doing right now? Like he's playing his best players as much as he, physically can. And two, like who do you want to replace him?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, sure, like you can point to other coaches around the league and be like, well, that guy's doing this and it's really good. Or, Eric Spoelstra's doing this and it's really good. Or Quinn Snyder's doing this and it's really good. But like, I mean, like Brad's defense until this year, pretty much every single year, the Celtics are a great defensive team under Brad Stevens. I mean, like I don't know what's happening right now, but like, it feels unlikely to me that there is somebody out there, that there's a coach out there who is going to be, exponentially better than Brad and is going to somehow turn this group into a contender, as opposed to what Brad is doing. Like, I think that the calls to fire him are, one, a little premature, and two, like, just not going to happen. Like, you guys might as well save your energy, because like Danny's made it pretty clear that Brad isn't going anywhere, and he just signed an extension. So I don't think Brad Stevens is going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Evan and I agree with you on that, and don't believe he should be going anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is an important distinction. It's one thing to say he should go, but he won't go. We don't believe he should go. So, you don't have to preach to us on that. That's for sure. But I'm sure there are plenty of people out there listening that you do. But I mean, I don't know. I guess building off of that before we do let you go, and I'm paraphrasing here, but Gary Washburn wrote recently that he believes, or I don't know if this came from a source or if this just is his own two eyes, but he's of the mind that maybe players are starting to tune Brad out a little bit. Are you seeing any of that? Is there a disconnect between the coaching staff and the players? Because if in fact that exists, then you do have a problem on your hands.
Of course, and especially again because the biggest thing that you're trying to do right now is keep Jalen and Jason healthy. So if there is or healthy too, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, both.
So yes, I mean if that is a problem, then certainly you have to reconsider. And then I think if you're a smart franchise, then Brad's job would be in trouble. When you talk to the players and when the players talk, Gary, I mean, Gary really knows, Gary's been around the game for a long time. What he sees, there's probably something there. I don't think that's probably what's happening just because I don't see the, in the post-game press conferences, the players are generally this is something that, we need to fix. We need to have more energy. We need to do X, Y, or Z. And not that they would explicitly call out the coach, but they aren't really leaving a lot of room for the coach to be blamed in their post-game comments. And maybe they're just being smart with that stuff because it's impossible to deny the larger point, which is that this team is wildly I don't know if they're underachieving or just not that good. Whatever it is, whatever the case is, they're 15-15 and people had higher expectations for, the team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But I mean, I don't know. This is actually this is actually the most frustrating thing about this season as a reporter is that if I was in the locker room, I would feel like I had a better sense of it, even though players wouldn't just be hey, Tom, come here. Let me tell you why I think Brad Stevens sucks. Obviously that doesn't happen, but you're just you're around things a little bit more. You have a better feel for it.
It's just and you would, as you're saying, you would have the ability to, if you have a better relationship with some guys than others, to, go up to them and say hey, just off the record, you can't do any of that over Zoom calls.
Exactly. The Celtics aren't about to let you just, hey, can I pull Tatum aside for just a second off the Zoom call? No, that's not happening. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say right now. And all we have to look at is, what's happening on the court, which is not great. So, something's going on. I don't know what it is, but, whatever the case, to give a Brad Stevens type answer, I think everybody's got to be better. So.
Well, just, have some stones, Tom. The next time that you talk to Brown, just say, hey, I'm just wondering, are you guys tuning out the coach at all?
I believe I would have to go back and look. I believe somebody did get asked that, or no, that might've been Danny on the Toucher and Rich call. But
that makes sense. But that's a totally different format.
For sure. So yeah, man, it's it's tough to say, but whatever it is, something's gonna change real quick here. So.
No, and clearly I'm not expecting you to ask that question. I mean that would go really well.
Man up, do it up. I don't know. Stir the pot. Maybe you would like to fire. Maybe Tom. Maybe you got with the guy that likes to fire underneath this team to try and get him in shape, get him in gear. I don't know. Maybe that's what it's gonna take. Just every Zoom call, just be like, hey, you guys tuning Brad out at all, or what's going on there? But again, that just to me,
you can become the Johnny Miller. Just start to ask the tough questions. Every time.
I loved it the other day. I'll give Heim Bloom some credit. He laughed it off real quick. That was good stuff. Of course, Johnny Miller, legendary Johnny Miller.
Yeah, absolutely. Kemba, I'm just curious, is there a reason that you don't try and draw contact and drive to the hoop at all anymore? Boom, done.
We gotta get Johnny on the beat. Johnny and the Celtics beat would be fun.
Absolutely.
Tristan, do you feel like there's, I don't know, any chance that you weren't the right guy for the Celtics to sign? Just go ahead.
What?
Yeah. Jeff, wondering, Jeff, if you're ever going to play again.
No.
I feel bad for Jeff, man. I really do. They signed him for $2.5 million. They did not sign this guy to be like the answer to everything off the bench. Like they didn't pay him that kind of money. They paid him like almost like a, not quite the minimum, but not a lot of money. And then when he,
they brought him in to be better than Brad Wanamaker, which was not a huge ask.
That is fair. Which, yeah, I mean, they probably would like to have Wanamaker back right about now. But like one way or the other, they brought in this guy. They didn't pay him that much, and like he made a bunch of threes in the preseason, and I feel like a lot of people were like, "Oh my goodness, like this guy is the answer. This guy is everything."
Adam.
Raise his hand. In fairness, I didn't need him to hit all those threes. I said it when they signed him.
Well, look, I mean, there was rationale for it. Like, if you look at his numbers, like there was actual rationale behind it, even like last year. But yeah, like turns out the guy's making 2.5 for a reason. So
yeah, he's taking 2.5 is what he's doing. I don't know if he's earning it.
Good work if you can get it, man.
Yeah, right. Keep getting them checks.
That's that new BDC contract.
That's right. Yeah, that's about my salary for sure.
Half dozen games before the All-Star break, folks. Dallas coming up on Tuesday, so depending on when you're listening, maybe that's tomorrow. You've got in Atlanta continuing and wrapping up that road trip on Wednesday, and then Friday at home against Indy, home against Washington, then Tuesday finishing up the homestand with LA, that's the Clippers, and then a game against Toronto, and that'll be the break. Do you just, I don't know, prediction time, and then we'll let you go. Are Tatum and or Brown all-stars? And second to that, just your opinion, should they be going in the first place if they are?
I think they'll both be all-stars. I think they should be. Should they be going? Look, man, I don't see any reason to be having an exhibition game. I mean, I get why the NBA is doing it. Like, it's money. Like Adam Silver can say whatever he wants about like the fans this, the fans that. It's an important game, all of that. But like, it's money. So I hope that everybody comes out of it unscathed, because I would have concerns about gathering all of your best players in the league in one place and potentially exposing them all to like if something goes wrong, there's a lot of sure, this might like help you financially, but also there's a lot of your product is going to be present at this game. So I mean, I really hope everybody just like stays healthy, because I would have a lot of concerns about it.
Well, and oh, by the way, are we just assuming all the Atlanta strip clubs are going to be closed that night?
You know, Harden's going. Harden's making it, so buckle the hell up, everybody. Come on now. Like, it's not going to be like Jalen to go do something with, some great thing that he always does. He'll go out and march around, but Harden's going to the club, and they're already preparing for it.
Wear your mask.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Atlanta's mayor was talking about how like, well, don't everybody go crazy. Like, it's like, what do you expect them to do? Like, everybody's lost all this money during the pandemic anyway. There's this one opportunity to make some. Of course, people are going to try. So.
No, but I love even the people of Atlanta, like leadership, are like, don't do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't bring this chaos to our city. This is a bad idea. We don't need this. Our thanks, as always, good friend of the program, Tom Westerholm, who of course hosts the Geno Time podcast. You should make sure you check that out. Subscribe, listen, 5-star rating, all the same stuff that we tell you about this show, and it does apply, folks. We appreciate it. For Tom, for Evan Westerholm, I'm Adam Kaufman, and we'll do this again real soon. It's at least we try and make it fun when times are tough. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.